Today I'm going to do the most heinous and egregious act of critiquing old League splash art. And I will most likely get many before was better comments. But remember, not every thing I say is etched in stone. These are just my opinions. And some of my opinions come from experience and art skill. They're not me trying to destroy your life. Okay, let's just try to separate the art from the game so that we can have a dialogue. Okay, also my voice is gone. So I'm so sorry. Classes recently have taken my voice along with weather change. I am sorry about that. Sound like I'm going through it all over again. So I brought up some newer League splashes for Nocturne. And I want to talk about why they work, what looks so good about them. And I brought in a Maokai art splash so we can talk about the texture, the wood texture as done by the artists of League of Riot. And I brought in the model, Nocturne's actual in-game skin model, and how we can take cues from it in case I do something wrong. Okay, so Habibi, come to Call of Duty. Did you call me? I heard you say toxic. Yes, I said it 3 times and Lex appeared. So the thing that works between all of these three is some really formulaic classic go-tos that are really effective, and the League team executes them beautifully. The silhouette, the secondary and tertiary light sources, and the universal light. Somehow they make all 3 of these lights work really well. Without any of these lights, the painting is quite mild. It's real pretty benign. I mean, this is amazing right here. The motion blur is great. But these tricks, apart from the really, really well executed detail structure, is why these splashes are so cinematic. It's the multiple light sources. It's the really, really well-controlled environmental light environment colors. So everything's got a nice clean wash. All the colors have been filtered through an environmental temperature. So everything feels balanced. It's not colors coming out of nowhere. And they've got their textures down. They know exactly how to lead the light through multiple surfaces on a similar texture. Nothing feels inconsistent. All the light banding seems pretty consistent throughout. So we come back here, we're missing all of those. The light in the background is competing with the light on the character. The light banding doesn't have much consistency. The character's pose is not cinematic. It's not filling the scene. It's kind of asymmetrical and disjointed. Why would we hide the other section of knives or whatever that weapon is? The wings, the what is it called when you got an elbow blade? Elbow blade. Let's just call it an elbow blade. So this entire scene feels disjointed. So what I'm going to do is try to just literally follow what the Riot team does and how they do it so well. And I'm just showing you, these aren't my opinions strictly. This is exactly what the League team is doing as well, and how to apply it here, how to just basically catch it up to the rest of the quality in the lighting and in the framing, the cinematic framing of League. Okay, so another thing is that all of these have a non-organic kind of fabric or metal cool value. So League loves its cool values. Rarely do we see a warm wash. If it's warm in the sense that it's got red in it, it's always a cooler red. This is a purpley red. It's all the way up here in the color picker. You see that? Color pickle. You see that right up here in the color pickle. So right here, we've got some blue. We've got a lot of blue, a whole, I mean, this is obvious. This one is the entire kind of, I would say the universal is the one that he's closest to, but it's a point of argument for a lot. Is it the universal the background, or is the universal the biggest light in the scene? Who cares? You've got a lot of cools here. Tons of cools. More often than not, you're going to see League splashes hovering in the cool side of the light environments. They establish their silhouette right away. They pick a universal light source. In my opinion, a universal is the one that's the biggest in the world, not in the canvas. So usually it's nice to create that distinction, because then you start thinking real world instead of canvas oriented law, which might make you make mistakes. So in my opinion, universal light is not the biggest in the room or in the canvas, it's the biggest in the room, meaning the world, the sun, the moon, the explosion in the background. That's usually the universal. It's the biggest in the concept of the world of the painting. So here, what's the universal? There is none. He seems like he's underground in a tunnel. Is this a city? I really don't know. I do not know what they were trying to do. I see some kind of shadow, so maybe it was a city, but why is it directly overhead? I'm going to just pretend it's some kind of fractal pattern. But the first thing before anything is our ritualistic lasso. We must summon our patience for this step. So bear with me. So those are the things I'm going to do. And those are the things that I've noticed League Splashes do very well. It's mostly cinematic stuff. There is technical skill. There is standard skill that we can study with still lifes, texture studies, gesture studies, scene studies from movies. There's a lot of technical skill. But then there's also just the go-tos, the things that work, the actions you can go through that will get you that final finished look. Okay. So I'm just going to, sorry, 1 minute. Let me just set this up so it doesn't keep bothering me. All right. Make sure everything's running, everything's excellent. Okay. So I'm just lassoing. What I'm going to do also is open up Portrait Studio and do one of the most important steps, which is find the best gesture you can find. Everything is the money shot. Write that back to me. Every painting you paint, everything you frame it as if it's the money shot. Like it's the shot that costs the most in the movie. It's not dirty, right? The word money shot. Is money shot a dirty word? Doesn't it mean the most expensive? I thought it was a dirty word. Anyways, the money shot, okay? The shot that ends up making everything look. Is it a bad word? Oh, okay. Maybe I should clean it up. Maybe I should get it. Every painting needs to be cash money. Exactly. So find the best gesture, the best, just shell out the best possible cinematic angle. The best, this is why these artists create so many thumbnails and send it to their director or just, contemplate them. They find the best possible angle to take. All right. I am so sorry for those who are attending the live stream. YouTube is having some difficulties with streams. And so I know some of you have to keep restarting the stream. I apologize for that. I was encouraged by my law office to start the stream anyway. I'm protected under the state of New York. All right, so I'm just lassoing. Forgive me for the amount of time these take. I used to ask for PTS. Yo, I'm out of it now. I used to ask for PSDs. My brain just betrayed me. I used to ask for PSDs, which gave me a lot of PTSD, trying to get everybody to send me the right file type. So I started just settling for JPEGs. But yeah. Oh, that's not a good crop. Let me fix that. My other streams in the sublist are having issues. Oh, well, I guess everybody's just dealing with it right now. So let's take care of that. I'm going to clean up this background as best as I can and see what I can do in duplicating that texture anywhere. And And then merging that down using some stamp brush here and there to clean it up and just hide some edges and corners. Because I'm not going to paint a whole background. I'm not even sure what the context is of Ravager Nocturne. Is he made of wood? What is he ravaging? You know, all the other skins have something of a narrative, but he doesn't seem to have one here. I tried to find some lore on Ravager Nocturne, but maybe you guys can help me out since I'm such a boomer in this situation. All right, so oops, not too dark. Let me go there. And I'm just trying to complete this weird fractal pattern in the background. I know it might be a top-down bird's eye view of a city or a town that he's recently ravaged. Maybe he's like, you know, horseman of the apocalypse or something. Maybe it's pestilence. I cannot tell. But I'm going to use it as some kind of really misty environment. So the reason why I opened up the Maokai skin is because we can see organic patterns very easily here. We can see them, and they have a cool nature to them. Look at this. This is supposed to be wood, but when I select some areas, it's straight up in the purples. Do you see that? So a lot of this, I mean, except the ones that are in direct universal light, which is how they cheated their way into making it make sense, you know, a blue environment, but brown, you know, it's difficult showing brown, so you got to cheat. So in some areas, they're using a very warm white. It's not really warm, but it's warm in that it's on the warmer side of the color pickle. And then I'm just going to just mimic that as best as I can, because I know he's supposed to be yellow. Again, I don't understand what he is. He kind of seems like he's swamp. Do you know what I'm saying? Does anybody have any knowledge about him? He ravages wood like termite. Is that the actual official lore? He's a termite? Seriously? Or is that just a joke? Because if that is what it is, I need to know that. All right, so what I'm going to do is have him coming in from the left. It seems to work. I just like the way that looks here. So we have the character on the right, kind of just gives us a nice little back and forth. But you guys can flip it and do whatever you want. I want to flip him and flip horizontal. Okay, so before I pose him, I wanted to explore the poses. It's going to be a really, really quick one, because all I really want to do is get the upper body to feel like he's just ready to pounce forward. So there's just like a really, really strong angle in the camera. And I want to mimic what they did, but I also don't want to copy it perfectly. All right, and so he's always doing that hunter's angle, you know, that hunter's look. And I'm just pushing his head out, but also want to just tilt the head in a bit as well. So he's looking directly up. I don't know if I want the camera from the front or the back. It really just doesn't matter, because he's going to be shrouded in a little bit of shadow because of the initial silhouette you have to add. This arm is actually looking pretty good. And this arm here could do a little bit more bending. So it's just like, kind of like he's ready to pounce, but it's more of like a straight, ready to go kind of forward bend in the back. Okay, and then maybe that twist in the back I could keep. So really what I'm trying to do is mimic some of what we have here, but also make it a little bit bent forward and haunched forward and kind of creepy and just in the way, you know, what you'd expect out of a nightmare. Because I believe the original Nocturne lore, I believe, is that he is haunting all of the city, the kingdom. He's causing some kind of collective nightmare. Everyone's having nightmares. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if that's old lore or new lore. And then I'm just gonna try to show the elbow blades on both sides and just show that he's ready to cut. He's ready to go. And then maybe a quick bend here. So I want a little bit more of that forward lunge happening. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, something akin to that. The head is going to get a little bit bigger. The head is kind of small. This arm is kind of bent in an awkward way. That arm, it just does not match. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So let's go for it. I'm going to separate the head. Okay. And I'm going to shrink it and lower it beneath, or enlarge it, sorry, and lower it beneath the shoulder line so that we have a really clean, anatomically accurate shoulder line in the back. And this arm is going to be like that, and that arm is going to be like that. Very, very simple go-to nocturne gesture you're seeing in a lot of these. Just an arm bent, claws ready. See that? It's just a nice go-to. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or find a super unique way to do it. Just go for the simple gesture that feels like a forward, like a Rengar pounce, and just stick to that. And everything else will speak for itself. So then I'm going to grab this arm, separate it. I'm not sure how to complete the rest, but I will look at the model of the character. So I'll separate this arm. That background is driving me crazy, but before I fix it, I have to fix the gesture. So I'm bending this forward. I'm doing a little bit of that. I'm bending the head forward so he looks a bit more like a hunter, a bit more like a monster ready to go. And then I'm deleting that back, whatever that is in the back. And you can see how the gesture is completing now. It's kind of just all falling into place. So we now have a very cohesive, let me turn that off, throw in a gray background just so we could focus. So now we have a very cohesive spine gesture. And maybe his gesture is like that, you know, maybe we've got something like that in the shadow, because he seems to be doing a lot of that contorted spine movement in all of them. So that just that classic nocturne gesture just here. I don't know if this is nocturne. Is this nocturne? Am I kidding myself right now? This is nocturne, right? I don't know. Who cares? It looks the same. And so the other arm is going to do something like this. It's going to have like a presence this way. So what I want to do is find the perfect spot for all of this. So a little bit less there. Maybe bend the whole thing this way. And grab the head and bend it out that way. So he's just ready to kill, kind of pounced, ready to go. I kind of want to move his head out of his silhouette just a little bit so that spine feels a bit more elongated with the neck. He's kind of more of a fiddlesticks looking nocturne. Before, his chest was kind of pushed forward and his head was a little bit kind of tucked back and kind of wimpy looking. I don't want him to look wimpy. He's a shadow demon. So his look is supposed to be pretty much a legend. This is supposed to represent a legend. So legendary monster, legendary warrior, whatever, what have you. This is what they are. And I'm just finding that separation here. Okay, and then trying to find and track down the neck and a line for the neck, wherever that ends up being. Turning off my gesture lines here. Flipping the canvas, making sure I've got a good shape going. I'm just filling in all those spots. And things will go by pretty quickly once we get a good gesture. Then it's just all dress up. Then we're playing dress up with the rest of the image. So, and then I'm just going to grab some of that Nocturne shadow-esque silhouette, his kind of shadowy trailing body. Maybe enlarge it and make it fill up the screen a little bit. The more the character fills up the screen, the larger the character feels, the more endangered the viewer feels, because this guy is so close, he's leaving my field of view. That's a really cool cinematic trick to help create that feeling of urgency in the gesture, in the illustration that you're about to get sliced. All right, and so bring the other arm back in. Even this, just this individually, looks okay. Even just that, it looks more dynamic. It looks more like he's twisting, like he's ready to go, ready to strike. So that downward motion in the gesture, this spine connecting to the head, this whole thing is what's causing this feeling. This, like, he's just about to strike. He's right there. He's right there in front of you. You're dead. And so I'm just going to fix up this hand gesture, maybe make it a little bit bigger to kind of involve some of that classic kind of field of view League likes to do. I lost a little bit of the stomach silhouette now, so I'm trying to get some of that back somehow in a second. That bend in the body, but it's not always necessary to keep it. We'll see. It's still there. It's still doing something. All right, and so I'm just going to follow my direction that I left for myself with the initial red lines and the initial sketch. And keep going forward. So this part of the arm here, I'm not going to try to render that with the time that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it, flip it, try to hack and slash my way to getting it done. And making sure the scale change is intact, meaning objects in the background are smaller than objects in the foreground. That's another thing you guys forget to keep track of. All right, and then I guess I'll use this part of the blade to duplicate the rest of the blades. So flip horizontal, elongate, filter, liquefy. I'm just going to make it look a bit sharper. Oops, I'm just going to make it look a bit sharper and more dangerous. And then just use that over here. Duplicate, use that over there. And just try to get some of it to show. I'm still not 100% sure of showing that little of it, but we'll see. I want to show more of the other arm because that's really what's making his character look cool. I don't know if that even matches anymore because this skin doesn't really match the in-game model, but I don't think that's important. I think they do that a lot. They break that rule a lot. So we're just going to go with it. I want that feathery kind of silhouette and everything. Okay. That's the head. And we're just gonna go ahead and put that on top. Merge layers. And then bring that down. Okay. And then try to find the rest of the body. So here we bent the body forward. And so what I think is happening is now there's like a bit of a dark spot here, or sorry, an empty spot. So I'm just going to enlarge him and bend him forward, and that should kind of shrink that spot a little bit more. And taking reference from the other ones, how they fill that negative space left behind his spine, they kind of just tuck him into a corner. Do you see how they solve this problem? They just they enlarge him so much in the canvas, he hits the edges of the canvas, and he's just so big, he's too big for the canvas. And so I'm going to try to do that same exact thing. Just like that. And that's really what makes him feel, again, like a hunter, like he's present, he's ready to strike. And so this arm, it kind of looks like he's doing the middle finger. I'd rather it just be a classic kind of closed claw. It feels like they tried to force the presence of that last part of the claw. So I'm just going to close it in. It's going to look a little bit more classic monster claw. You see what I'm saying? Less of like an awkward finger sticking out. Okay, so that was all just gesture talk, and this is the kind of stuff you get out of the way when you are doing thumbnails. So do your thumbnails, guys. Get those decisions out of the way as early as possible so that they're not haunting you later on in the process. I want to give him a little bit of extra shadow in the back, but it's going to look like a dress, like a skirt, and I don't want to do that to Nocturne. So, also, I've never seen a single Nocturne ult where someone didn't die. This guy is so OP. I stopped playing League because of him. And a bunch of other really, really unfair characters, but also the anti-cheat. So I'm just ready to go. I'm going to turn this insane background back on. And you see what I'm saying? It's too much. So I'm actually going to flip the background so that we have brightness on the other side, like we had originally. And then flip it back so that I'm working left to right. And now all that's left for us to do is just fill in the rest of the canvas. So I'm just trying to find a sweet spot between negative space and positive space. I'm trying to find some depth that he's emerging from. I want to stay true. I do. I want to stay true to the original color scheme, but I'm going to have to change it because orange is cheesy. Not just because orange and cheese go hand in hand, but because we don't want to use orange unless we're talking about fire, unless we're talking about some kind of fire nearby that he caused, unless we're talking about, it does not work. So what I'm going to do is try to do a two-tone of some kind. I'm going to try to do some kind of other color, just other environmental color nearby, and maybe mess with a fire right behind him where he caused some devastation and ravaging, and keep it generally bluish nighttime. All right, again, we're referencing the other ones. There's always space for something cool. A purely orange background, it just doesn't look or feel right. It doesn't feel appropriate to the character. It doesn't feel appropriate to what we're trying to say about the character. So I'm just going to desaturate it a bit more. It's just not a good color. It's not a good color to pick, and it's taking away from the orange of his color. So you can't just do a monochromatic painting. It feels like something's not working. And so I'm just trying to find some kind of background color that will read right, and this will be changing a lot as I move with the painting, because it's I'm trying to create a light environment. I'm not trying to create a monochromatic kind of abstract look. So these colors are going to change quite a bit as I try to explore this light environment. Okay, and then darkening it for the mood. There's always a degree of darkening in these types of skins. Checking that, I believe there is a sharp little bit to the arms that I may have missed. A sharp piece here somewhere. Okay, so we're gonna just do that and then fix that up later. Okay. And then just keep darkening that background, finding a color that feels right, that we're just gonna settle on, you know, finally. And maybe that'll just be a good starting color. Again, this is nowhere near the finishing color that we're gonna go with. And then now that I have a background color, I can start to add depth to some of the elements, though we don't really need them. We can just lighten the, do you see what I'm saying? It's this brown color that's kind of distracting me from applying an atmospheric color. And then still not quite decided on anything, so I'm not going to merge his character down. All right, so before I make any more color choices, I'm just going to pretend this is something of a monochromatic kind of grayscale painting. I'm going to ignore the colors while I establish the light environment. I'm going to keep his arms separate, but merge the rest. Okay, and I'm going to darken him as well. Yes, he's going to get darkened so that we can establish the light environment. Again, this is what makes these league splashes so good, is that their light environments are really sharp. They look realistic. Something about them is making sense. And after I darken his light environment, I re-illuminate his actual colors that define his skin, which is going to be the white in the mouth, which I'm going to clean up in a bit, and the white in the eyes. Again, I don't really understand this character's lore, but it's okay. And then I'm just going to delete at some of the light banding on his character just so it feels complete. Usually it's just a circle. And a little bit here. And a little bit here. A little bit there, just so we can have some continuous effect. Re-enable that arm, darken it just a little bit. And it's already starting to feel league splashy. Again, we're just following the league formula. And then bring that down. Delete away at only what we need, which is just the light banding and a little bit of the light banding on the armor or the skin or whatever. And a little bit there. So I want the inside of his palm to be illuminated by something. I still haven't decided what that is, universal light or whatever. And then merge that down. So things are starting to feel a little bit better. I'm going to cool down his character by shifting him over from wherever he is now to something cooler, a cooler version of what he is. So it could be shifting him over into red. It could be shifting him over into blue-green. Whatever it is, it can't be this pukey green color. Even if it's the skin, we can cheat a little bit. The skin isn't always exactly the same color as the character. I'm going to do that over here. It's going to be a little bit more red. Trust me, that color will come back once I add the purple wash. And so I'm going to go find a purple wash and just try to add in a more dead version of that initial yellow. There's no such thing as dark yellow. There's just like tired grays. But I feel like this color here can be brought back with the universal that I bring in later. And those little speckles here and there of yellow that may exist. That can be brought back in sections. Meaning the whole thing doesn't have to be that yellow, but some areas can have it where there is light. So over here I'm bringing it back. Over here I'm bringing it back. Wherever there is light, that yellow can return. But now it's in a more controlled environmental filter. Meaning it's not dominating the entire scene. And then over here, locking, I'm going to select this background color and use it to kind of fade away his tail, which I will later enhance with a lot of smoke effect and just more smoke presence, similar to what you see here. Just that stringy smoke that they've painted. But of course, we now need to add those light effects. What are they? I've noticed in his gameplay, he has like a white explosive thing. Abu, I was wondering if you could send me a video of Nocturne's fight like in battle, like in game fight animations, his attacks. If you could just show me them real quick in a video. There should be a video in there somewhere. And that belongs to the arm. Okay. So now it's just, you know, up to the narrative. Like, where are we taking the rest of this? So I'm just going to throw in a bit more of a silhouette behind him. And darkening and resilhouetting until it feels like we have that shadowy, nocturnal, you know, dark environment. Adjusting the tail where I can so that we have tiers of depth and tiers of mid-ground, foreground, background. And I can just, you know, be selective with where I put this shadowy background. And so I can, this is more of a simplistic kind, no really heavy narrative skin. So I can just use a simple background for it. And just trying to show little moments of highlight behind him while still trying to incorporate that light environment. Just wherever that light environment may be coming in from the top. Usually throwing in light from the top like this. Oopsie. Sorry about that. Like this works really well to create the feeling of a very, very high ceiling. And so we can do that here. Not that this is a kind of a larger character like we have in that scene. Okay, I'm going to darken this arm just a little bit more with levels first. Just so it's more in the foreground. And then between this arm and this arm, I'm going to start throwing in some atmospheric presence with that fog brush. Just so, again, we have those tiers of depth behind him, letting me darken that tail once again. And then that darkened tail, I'm going to delete with the same brush to get a more cool, like a cooler pattern in that fog that's in the foreground. And then what we're going to do is just start selecting some areas to have that glow. Again, I'm not 100% sure what magic fight to use, what aspect of his magic to use. He's got like a lot of really cool moves. He's got like a fiery, which we can bring in another color with, which is really cool. He's got like this ring of blood red flame. That can be really cool to bring in a secondary light source because that's the next step. He's also got like this white blast, which might be cool, but that could be included in the background color. So it's hard to decide which one to do. I might just do the red one. And then just see what I can pull off. So multiply. And just trying to create a new space for this. So we've got the gesture check. We've got the character check. Now we're going to bring in the secondary light sources. Before I do, I just want to get rid of some of these dark spots on his character, just so we can see more of his arm and his general nature. Maybe bring out the detail this artist created. And I don't know what he's made of, wood or something else. This is going to be on a separate layer. I'm going to delete back to the old one to get rid of some of what dodge tool is doing, which is just this hyper level of illumination. I don't want him to look like he's made of metal, basically. Clean up my lasso here. Actually, before I do that, let me go to before all that dodge happened. I shouldn't have dodged the other end, but that's okay. Paste it. And then just delete away and desaturate where I can. So it still looks like that dead color, that deadish yellow color. And then deleting away at those light bands to try to get that classic light band League look they kind of add these light metallic bands, and even things that are not quite metallic, they tend to have this presence. Though he is made of some kind of organic thing. I'm still not quite sure what he's made of. A couple more things here. This is the rendering. This is what takes the longest. And maybe start highlighting on midtones instead. Just trying to use the quick tools. Of course, you guys use brush to duplicate these changes. It'd be really cool if you guys did your own league, you know, fix-ups for the older skins and saw what you could do with it. And just checking the navigator to make sure there's no major dark stops, you know, the areas that are really, really just no light is happening. And then making 100% sure those are like these bluish thingies attached to his arm. Make sure those are really illuminated. Those are going to not only be illuminated, but have a glow and a color change. So this color change, I'm copying, in fact, the exact color they use in this screenshot. Okay, so, oopsie, color. And because these glow, they get to throw that color on everything around them. And now it's just starting to come together, sort of, because now we're introducing that other color. And then that fiery thing from earlier, I'll bring that in a bit. I'll bring in that magic spell from earlier. So what I'm going to do is work on his smoke dress. Sorry, I call it that. I don't know what he's made of. He's just like a Death Eater, really. A Death Eater shroud, shadow shroud. And so I'm just gonna smudge that back into the background, and then introduce more smoke in a bit. I'll introduce that extra light, and then start like changing things back and forth, adjusting balances until it feels and looks right. But before I do any of that, I have to introduce that dominant light source in the background that they use in all of their splashes, that universal. And it starts off as a simple rim light, or it can be something else. So it's a bit tricky trying to find exactly where it is and what it's doing. So I started off just with dodge tool, and then I obviously bring the color back, bring the layer back on a lower opacity. And so over here, dodge tool, it's like right there. Damn, is that all one thing? Wow. And desaturate. I should have used the brush, but I don't really care. And I'm going to desaturate that universal color, bring it on top, and then just delete away at what I feel like should be a softer edge, and it just gets the ball rolling for that universal light presence. Okay, and then a little bit of it, this time with a brush, on just the back of his. I could have easily done this with a brush, but I guess I'm not thinking. And then a little bit more on this side of his head, though I'm not that concerned with showing too much frame of his head. I don't want his head to look like an egghead or anything. I'm just trying to bring in that universal light behaving as a rim light or a secondary, but it's not a secondary in that it's not the biggest in the universe of the painting. Don't want to throw in too much rim light. Too much rim light will flatten the scene, so be careful with that. Trying to show where the muscles are and where the back is. And then this arm, which kind of feels a little bit, again, disjointed. I just want to create that spine in the back. the look of the spine in the background. Okay, so a lot of surgery, a lot of changes. But once we color wash and control some elements, we can start making sense of it. And this red here is already kind of getting started on its own. I'm going to bring in that crazy blood red fire thing that he does, which is almost like a ring within a ring within a ring, kind of. Let me triple check what he actually is doing. So yeah, it's kind of like a big ring. Oh, so there are ellipses within ellipses, I guess. Maybe I should shrink it. And then what we're gonna do is filter blur, Gaussian blur, and then make another layer that we over blur, filter, blur. We're really blurring this one, so we have a little bit of extra eraser room. We merge those two layers together, and I'm gonna delete with a smoke brush and try to get that pattern to come through of those like magical, fiery, sinewy things. And then duplicate that layer, get dodge tool, and just see where I can introduce a little bit more spiking in the color. Maybe even bring in like a brighter yellowy, fiery color, you know, sporadically. And that's going to introduce a, so I'm going to show where some of it is in front of his arm and his hand, sorry, and some of it is behind his hand. So I'm not losing the fingers completely, and I'm still erasing with that smoke brush for that edge effect. Do you see that? So it's going to not completely throw it away. Some of the fiery element, whatever it is still in front of his hand. And then get on a dodge tool, color dodge, find that fiery color, this one, and just throw it in there. Oops, that's too much. Throw it in there. Behind the hand too, to create that really cool silhouette. We don't want to completely lose the hand either. So let me just delete that. And then on the inside of the hand, change the color of the inside of his claw. You can see how now the inside of the claw needs to be just a bit darker. So multiply. Just so we can get a little bit of that rim light to come through. So these are the classic League formulas, and someone from Instagram requested I do Ravager Nocturne. I've never seen this splash before. If I played against it, I probably don't remember because the Nocturne players destroyed me. Okay. And then we're just gonna get some of that rim light, kind of like a purpley red. What a pretty color. And I'm just going to, I mean, that's what I'm happy is that at least he has some extra secondary colors to him that can help revive some of that monochromatic look in the skin. Maybe they'll recreate the skin one day with a couple more selective, you know, color changes that actually work together instead of that green yellow, call it puke yellow, which isn't the best color in a painting, I'll be honest with you. It's kind of an ugly color. And then this arm needs a bit of that ambience, so that's why it was so important to establish the background color, because we need ambience somewhere. We need some of that universal color to come in and just kind of relieve some of the shadows here. And I'm just bringing in that glow, that crystalline glow, and all those elements. So now we get to really have fun with some more of these silhouette elements, really just nocturne them up. Some of their splashes are so dark because their silhouette use is just so beautiful. It's so well done. So we're just making sure we have some of that really amped up. And then that background color, now that he has that color, I'm not afraid to kind of throw that wash in the background without worrying too much about stepping away from some of those things. Normal, sorry, color, and just doing some framing. So I'm going to get that black on that cloud brush and use some of it on the lower half of the canvas, maybe with multiply, to kind of darken the lower half of the canvas and the upper half to continue that nocturne look. And that's what's really going to finish it. You can see in all of these, we have a dark shadow here, big dark shadow here. So we have light versus dark. The canvas is kind of cut in half. We have dark corner, light middle top. So that's exactly what we want to do. And the darker the background is around those glowy bits, the more the glowy bits will come out. And then once again, just trying to find a background color that suits it. Maybe I could push it into purple just so we can have a cool non-monochromatic background. And then using some of that light white blue in the upper half to represent the daytime that is behind him somewhere out there. Not too much because it is still Nocturne. He's still a darker character with a darker storyline. Okay, and duplicating that, darkening once again, almost all the way just to bring those out, and then deleting what is not needed for his silhouette. And then relightening that just for the sake of that bit of mistiness in his shadow gown. Now it's a gown. And not really sure what this extra section is. Did I do that section? Because I'm checking here and it seems like it's just in the way, this little bit. So I kind of want to get rid of it. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of breaking that fingery kind of shape. So this was straight up from the ground up, this critique. It kind of just needed a lot of extra changes and a lot of redoing the color. Oopsie. Okay, and then just darkening what I can in some of the arm area. Grabbing this texture and applying it where it may be more necessary for the hand area. And then seeing how I can continue applying that texture and layer it to make it work for the scene. Just try to catch up the rest of the rendering. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts, but it seems to be going in that general direction. Now I'm just going to start bringing in those light effects here and there, just more purple, a little bit more of a sharp look to the arm, just cleaning up general stuff. More of a complete silhouette in the background under the arm. So kind of letting that pink, purpley pink, dominate that lower half of the canvas by a lot on soft light to bring out that arm because it seems to be disappearing. Actually, let me put that on normal and just use normal mode and just separate that part of the arm. Again, like, what is this stuff here? I seem to have lost track of his design in the original skin, but Just cleaning him up, really. Burn on midtones. And letting some of that really pretty pink color create an edge around his arm as a form of rim light. So all the way up, which is like this fiery claw hand that he can do. I believe it's both hands, so I can duplicate that effect in a bit and show how it may be sitting on top of behind his other area. So duplicate that, shrink it, oopsie. Whoopsie. Okay, duplicate that, shrink it, put it behind him on the other end, and then duplicate that, put it behind him over there. And that will kind of break that monochromatic look and give us something else behind him that may be glowing. It might be more of a blood red, so we can still adjust quite a bit moving forward. And then we can just add in some shadows, some really cool shadows in the foreground. Where is that? Right here, just go for that blue. A darker blue. A black. And then just delete away. And those secondary lights are a little bit in the way, so I want to kind of make them take over more in the painting. And there's that shadowy bit. I do want to make him a little bit bigger, a little bit larger than life, but I don't want to step too far away from the original, I guess the original art. But what I can do is bring in some smoke effects of his general presence, creating those cloudy effects around him. Just multi-layer cloud effects. Maybe one hand can have the magic, maybe both. Really don't know. Let's just make it both. Let's shrink it. And bring that one in front. And delete some of it. Okay, and then just deleting with that same brush. Oops. Okay, and then we're going to just continue with detailing him. So that's the last kind of step to all this, is just his face, which is very unfinished. Feels like I didn't have a decent resolution to the image I found. So I'm just gonna try to complete that look in the mouth. But that's a lot more rendering than I can do. It's already 6:10 just to do all that lassoing and change. And then the same thing with the eyes. I want like a sharper eye, and then we apply that change after. So sharper eye. I'll just do it with brush since lasso is kind of weird right now. Okay. Then just applying some kind of rim light or thickness, sorry, to the mouth, like a scarecrow. Again, he's very fiddlesticks, the skin. And then just applying that thickness of the eye area. So let me actually shrink that now that I'm zoomed out a bit. Just shrinking it just a little. Okay, and then we can make that white of his face also take over a little bit. So darken. So we're darkening the rest of his face so that, see, wrong layer. Darkening the rest of his face, or some areas of his face, so that the eyes really pop. The way they look really pops. Getting the teeth to show a little bit more clearly. And then just cleaning up that rim light there. Some of that rim light there, which I'm not sure how to stitch together with the background, but we'll see. And then just completing it on that side. And it's just a lot of balancing, deleting and not deleting, balancing a lot of these elements together. And then just this bluish white sitting on the back of his muscles and his back. And then just kind of trying to stitch that shoulder blade in somehow. Just to at least show some anatomy of the skeleton. I guess he's just a shadow wraith, so there is some human anatomy still visible. And then that same blue on the arm. And then just doing that cleanup job, just continuing to clean up everything. Keep all the edges sharp. And then just getting soft light on pure white for his eye glow, which may result in a little bit more of that actual signature magic of the skin. And I'm just letting some of it kind of like froth out a little bit, I guess. Not too much, maybe. Again, soft light's kind of failing me today, so I'm just going to do it on normal, since normal has that really cool effect as well. And then just deleting away at it with a textured brush edge. It'd be really cool if there was time to add in all of the you know, like screaming people in the background, something of a victim. I'm not sure. So morbid. But it'd be really cool if we could add all that. I'm gonna add in some of the magic of his arms, or elbow daggers, or elbow blades, or whatever you want to call them. I'm gonna add in the top blue-green light of the environment just on top of his character. So like, do you see what I mean? It's not behind him, it's on top of him now. This is the presence of the universal directly on top of him. And his domain is kind of in the shadows, which is going to be coming in from the bottom. Do you see that? So we frame the image with just two different atmospheric effects. And then that flame, you know, that shadow, all the things burning in the background, that's where you could bring back that fire of you know, of like things burning up and a lot of stuff, you know, like the ravaged stuff, the ravaging of war. You know, you could throw in the burning people or the burning cities. You know, you can show how his presence has caused that. And you can show some silhouettes of cities on fire. That type of thing. I'm not interested in that at the moment because it's a lot to add in. So I would do that on a whole other critique hour, just, you know, talk about backgrounds and stuff. But if you have to bring back in that burning world that he's caused, this kind of creature of war, pestilence, you know, like he's a horseman of bringing bad things with him, you could do that. And then I want to add that really cool nocturne, sinewy thing happening. But before I do, color dodge and just elevating the magic of his hand a little bit more and using some of it on his head. So that rim light on his face from the two light sources really makes completes the feeling of like that secondary light effect that they love to do on League splashes. I don't even know why I did that as a dodge tool, as a dodge layer. I guess I'm losing my mind. I'm just gonna do that on a regular layer. If you can see that. And a little bit on this arm. So there's a lot more I would love to do, but unfortunately I don't have all the time for these streams. Plus, you know, the streamer guests get kind of tired. Yes, I just did it, Jamie. Pull up the video. So all these elements, moving parts as I've been calling them, are coming together in a little way, but you still have to keep revisiting and seeing how much more you can pull off. So like this blue, this navy blue of the magic of the blades can be mixed with a green blue, and that'll change the monochromatic curse that is happening in this scene. You can get like a yellow purple and use it on the edges of the magic of his hands on a separate layer on color mode. This is, you don't have to do everything in modes as I'm doing. So we're just trying to disrupt, and bring in that colorful rainbow color palette that we see in a lot of the League splashes. We're trying to disrupt all that. And then I believe this is the arm. I'm gonna really, which layer mode I would pull this off the best? Maybe lighten? I don't know. I'm gonna try to find the cylinder of his arm as best as I can, because it's kind of disappearing, and kind of try to make his arm look more like a cylinder. That's it, really. And then his chest area and all of that. I'm just going to try to bring in that sinewy shadow, which I don't even know what brush I have that can pull that off, but here goes nothing. I'm going to try to do it with my own. He does have this shadow in the game. He does have this kind of trailing shadow dress. He's a diva Nocturne. You can't mistake it. I do that there. What the heck am I doing? So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, just to incorporate all of that together. And then I'm deleting with a textured brush to create the resulting shadowy texture. So I'm grabbing that guy and just deleting at this to create that shadowy look at everything. And you're gonna do this probably 50 more times till you get it to look right. You just keep layering all of those sinewy shadows until you get that nocturne-y shadow trail, that Death Eater, Dementor look. Actually, you know what? I really don't like it there. And all these shadows can catch some of that bounce light. They definitely can. So that's game art. It's really entertaining. It's got all this stuff moving at the same time. It's got a lot of different light sources, a great background universal color, a universal wash, which I'm going to add at the very end. And just really cool stuff and light shows and all the lights and WWE wrestling lights everywhere. It's all about the entertaining. It's really just a wrestling show. League of Legends. It's made by WWE, and yeah, and that's how it feels sometimes. Looking at all those splashes, it's like in this corner, you know, like it feels very very entertaining in that way. I wish there was more I could figure out about his character so I could bring in more, but this is what I can do right now. And I'll show you guys the before and after, which is going to be obviously very different. Come on. I don't even know what was in that layer. Who cares? And what was I going to do? I have no idea what I was going to do. It's gone. I don't know. And I'm just going to show where his shadowy skirt is kind of tucking in front of him. All the boys who play Nocturne, all their hearts break every time they hear me say skirt. And I'm going to do something controversial, which is no different from what I've been doing, which is duplicate the layer and darken him even more, just a touch more, and cool him down a touch more. And just, he's starting to look a little bit like Venom, which is really cool. I've always liked Venom. Just darkening that silhouette a touch more. Silhouettes are really fun. They're really entertaining because they create a chance for you to mess with all kinds of, you know, like rim light, and it lets the scene get dark enough to use bounce light. And there's just a lot of really cool stuff that happens in a silhouetted scene. It's just dark enough for the lights, it's just light enough for the darks, and all things look good together. I want to expand on where that bounce light is coming from at the top. So that's it. We pulled out all our guns. We used every trick in the book to try to get this Nocturne to look more like he's at the level of all the other champs skins. And I just want to make his arm pop out a bit more, just with some, I don't know, what can I sneak in here? Just anything. Like I could just literally get anything and sneak it in and it'll kind of look good. And you could have a little bit more of those traily, shadowy parts. I'm just smudging with my smudge brush and just smudging them in, duplicating, flipping, and just using them anywhere that may need them. So where are they? So like somewhere, maybe like here or here. It's gonna look a bit messy if it's not cleaned up, but it's just something to throw in because I don't have access to a lot. And then I'm gonna merge the whole thing down once and for all, and just try to, actually before I do that, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna find where we have some of those shadows in the top corner and try to get rid of them, just so that shadow, that silhouette in the top left isn't obstructed completely. You see that? So now we get a bit more of that light shooting in. Holy cannoli, this was a lot. Just throwing in a bit more light just there and just showing that battle between light and dark. And really, like you can do other things that are even weirder for his character. Like you could grab his whole head and enlarge it even more and like grab it and put it down. Maybe that's too big. And then like give his neck more of an elongated skeletal presence. But there's just only so much I can do before I start doing too much. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just going to leave his head small, even though it's not reading. Give me 1 minute. I just want to do this right. Okay. So I'm going to grab his head, separate it. And just kind of do something like that, I guess. Just enlarge it. And then those lights there. That rim light. Okay. A lot, but also a little. It was just a lot of the same tricks, just cleaned up into oblivion and used to bring out the character and just kind of enhance them. So I'm just going to flatten the image now. And once the image is flattened, I can really boost things one last time for those magical things that are happening in the scene. So whatever that magic is in his hand, I can finally bring in that final magical step forward. I can use some more strength on the rim light of his head. I can darken the whole scene and select what's exposed and what's not. I can create a clash. Like these are collective brush strokes that create that big difference. It could have been cool to show where his trail was going in the background. Just that shadowy look to his character. All these things start popping out once you kind of get into it and merge all the layers together. And some things just pop out at you because you're like, you know, things are starting to get mixed. And once you start mixing, you start combining and pieces come together. I'm just showing where he's kind of trailed in from the background into the foreground. And then just blurring it for that lens effect. And maybe just reducing some opacity as he's going into the distance. And now that I have layer X, like this flattened layer, I can just contort him a little bit more. Just kind of play with his gesture, make him look a bit more bony, make him look a bit more menacing by tilting his head down. Do you see that change there? Before, after. Just make him look more like demonic. And it's hard to do all this with all those layers separate from each other. And just keep that forward lunge happening in his character. And maybe even reposition his entire character in a different spot enlarge him so he's even bigger in the scene. It's really up to you what you want to do. Whoever it is I'm talking to. I'm not really talking to the same skill in the artist that drew this. They've obviously gotten better over the years. But anybody who wants to experiment and make these changes themselves. There's so many different routes we could have taken to use those go-to league effects in the splash art. And yeah, so it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff to do in a short amount of time. But what do you guys think of these changes? Do you guys have any questions at all? I'm just messing around with depth a little bit more, but if you guys have any questions for those who are still here and waited to the end, you guys are OGs for being so patient. I know these paint overs can take forever. That's too much shadow. So there's that. There seems to be an empty spot right here that's developed. So I would take more time finding better thumbnails so that I can have a better general finish to the piece, so I can get a better gesture. But there's I have to work fast. So it's hard to pick exactly which gesture and what time. I don't know if people are still here. Is this live stream still up? Is it still working? What's happening? And yeah, maybe this part of the thingy is here. It's telling me the live stream is excellent, but it's hard to see. Yeah, so this before and after is gonna look a little crazy because this is a lot to change, but it's just so I can show you where those issues were in the design that were they stick out like a sore thumb now if you looked at them again, which is that yellow and the gesture and that general disjointed look in the scene, the lack of light presence everywhere, how the background and the foreground shared the same general look. And then now I'm just gonna throw a huge color wash over everything, reduce its opacity, and delete away only what I know can stand alone as a color. So that these lights and this color wash, what it does is just do one more unifying color temperature correction, just in case things are a little bit off. It's a little effect. Oops, it's a little effect that helps to get rid of that, leftover oranginess. But he's still the color that he's supposed to be in the skin. He's still got that, whatever that is. And I want to just break up his arm piece a little bit more. Just so it continues to look like wood. I don't really know what it is that he's made of, but just to throw in some extra detail elements. Okay. Is he some kind of elemental? He's like a nightmare creature. He does that, the hauntings and he's like a Halloween creature, really. He haunts and he takes over the dream world, and so you never get rest, you never get any sleep. He causes nightmares. I'm just gonna throw in a bit of depth overlap here. That's really what he does. He just does that. He's just like a nightmare man. I'm just trying to find wherever I get the chance, wherever there's a chance to throw in some kind of depth change. Anything at all that can be snuck in. So over here, maybe. what have I done? What is it that I've done? Oh, right. Oops. Just illuminating that there for some reason. And just following my instinct, whatever it's telling me. Merge down. And then going to before I did all that when I did the initial paste. And oh man. Merge down. Where are you? That's it. Sorry, 1 minute. I don't know why it kept the history. Okay, and I'm just gonna merge that down and try to make sure that I didn't destroy any pre-existing elements like the arm piece there. It was just for that. But anyway, let's take a look at the before and after. So we've got before. Here we've got a lot of the same classic league tricks that we can use, and then we look at the before, we see none of them are being used, and so we create the more dynamic, involved character to help whatever he does in the gameplay to represent it a little bit. So there's got that shadow part, the multiple colors, the blue and the green, and the blue and the red, and try to involve all of those together. So those are the tricks League uses to make these types of splashes happen. These really clear, really, really cool involved splashes. I can see they did that red thing here. I could have copied that. But yeah, that's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of changes. Not gonna lie, this does not look like the type to be a dream creature. He looks like he'd be from an evil forest, kind of like an evil tree come to life. Yeah, I'm not sure what the skin is anymore. Kind of feels like a pestilence type of fiddlesticks horror skin. I really still don't get it. Maybe I could have looked it up a little bit clearer. But yes, they like to hug the frame a lot, which makes the characters look super huge, super daunting. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the splash is like really small and there's more happening, so they can do more, show more of those bits there and all of those parts. Maybe I could do an extended critique hour where I finish this even further, because it's kind of fun messing around with all those different powers and different battle elements and try to involve all of that background story and see how much further we can take it. But I'm limited to whatever it started off with, which is these cut off sections over here. If you have to change the colors to match whatever you had before, it's just a simple matter of using those colors again in exactly the same changes we did. Like it's you can just do something like this. I literally just did an overlay and delete wherever we have to have those colors. So right here, right here, right here, and right here. Like if you have to use those colors from before, it's really up to you. But that's the point of it, is that we're just trying to get a light environment that matches the the whole storyline and the general League world, where everything is just kind of blue tinted and nightmarish. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys learned something. And it's not that hard to push yourselves to finish things into a League Splash skill level. You guys can do the technical stuff. You can do the texture studies, the gesture studies, but all the other stuff, the illustration building comes from thumbnails, comes from cinematic perspective, comes from camera angle, and some very secured go-to tricks and light environment tricks that make every shot look amazing. And they're all the go-tos for like Halloween shots in movies, magical reveals in movies, final boss reveals in movies, final forms. Those really cool light effects where you've got a lot of moving parts, lots of light reflection, combating colors, complementary colors. and go from there. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.